Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the newest album from Jake Owen called American Love. But first, let's talk a little bit about charisma. I think a lot of people, and I include critics like me in this, kind of downplay how much charisma contributes to an act's success and viability. But let's get real here. There are people who have it that can stick around and become superstars, and people who don't have it and have to utilize every trick in the bag in order to compensate. These are the artists who make it look easy, like Usher, Mariah Carey, or Justin Timberlake, or Ludacris, or the people with such prodigious stage presence where you just can't help but look, like Garth Brooks or Kesha, or, as much as I don't like to admit it, Luke Bryan. And artists who have raw charisma can often get away with a lot more than their less expressive counterparts, or somehow find a way to what would destroy so many other performers and yet make it something that's able to connect. So let's talk a little bit about Jake Owen, arguably one of the most immediately charismatic country stars to come out of the opening years of bro country and ride the trend to some reasonable success. He's also one of the few artists who understood if you're gonna make kind of stupid music, you might as well make it fun, which is one of the reasons why Beachin' still holds up for me as one of the best hit songs of 2014. But I've always thought that if he wanted to aim higher, he could put together some potent music that cuts a little bit more deeply, as songs like Ghost Town and Life at the Party from the far better than expected Days of Gold proved in late 2013. Hell, Life at the Party was one of my favorite songs, bar none, of 2013. Hell, a pairing with solid songwriters, and I had hopes that Jake Owen could really deliver, especially in 2016 with Bro Country being a mostly distant memory and minus Joey Moy's overdone production. And while I thought that lead-off single American Country Love Song was a little bit by the numbers in the writing, I was still won over by most of the instrumentation and Jake Owen's performance. So I figured what the hell, and I checked out American Love. What do we get with it? Well, I want to be nicer to this album than I probably should be, because you can definitely tell that Jake Owen's heart really is in the right place. It's clear from the songs that he's picked and co-written that he's looking to leave the bro country movement behind for whatever sound might be in the future. And instead of just picking one sound, he picked about 5 and charged forward with reckless abandon. And the amazing thing, how often he stuck the landing. Cause yeah, American Love really is kind of a mess, but it's the sort of mess that has enough gems to redeem a lot of the rougher moments, even if I don't quite think it connects as well as the best songs from Days of Gold. And yet the funny thing, when you consider the album as a whole, it does have a certain self-contained quality to the themes and the motifs. Both the opener title track and the closer American Country Love Song traffic in a lot of Americana symbolism that with a little bit more narrative ambition could have pushed even further beyond just your universal love stories. Jake Owen and his writers don't really go that far, but like with Days of Gold, he continues the tradition of his writing being more clever and more mature than it really needs to be. Sure, he's got his stupid party jams like VW Van and Good Company, the latter which goes to the reggae well with more texture, but ultimately just isn't quite as catchy as Beachin' was. But when the stories get a little bit more complex, things get kind of interesting. There's little bits of cleverness on the hook on the invitation to hook up on Where I Am that unfortunately isn't echoed on the girlfriend stealing of If He Ain't Gonna Love You, which runs a little bit too sour and minor and slick to work well with Jake Owen's more earnest vocal tones. Chris Stapleton, the co-writer, his backing vocals are clearly evident on the song, and honestly, he probably could have carried it a little bit better. Jake Owen is much better fit for a song like Everybody Dies Young, which plays to a looser party vibe that invites folks of all ages to cut loose. But his real unsung strength, as it has been for a while, is in more melancholic songs. I'm a little bit more shaky than I want to be on the breakup of the piano ballad When You Love Someone, where he catches his significant other cheating and ends things. You know, you can recover from this, and yet the song doesn't really have the complexity to explore deeper, and I really didn't like the triplet flow on the verses of You Ain't Going Anywhere, which even directly references his previous song Ghost Town and really isn't better than that song. But the real standout here is LAX, a send-off to an ex-girlfriend heading to LA that not only features Owen's writing, but also balances the complicated emotions of the situation really quite well and really lets Owen emote here. He is a powerhouse of a singer, and while his backing vocals don't always flatter him, he's got the charisma to elevate so much of this album just on his own power. He is a great performer. Of course, the other reason why LAX works is that it's easily the most country song on this album, with an acoustic groove and plenty of pedal steel, which not only sounds modern, but wonderfully melodic. And this can be a bit of an issue on this album because, as I said, the production's kind of all over the place. Jake Owen seems to be going in a half dozen different directions on this album, and I definitely think the pure country sound works best for him, mostly because it's the most straightforward and it complements his vocals rather than forcing him to compete with them or compromising his flow. And even though Joey Moy didn't produce this album, there are still points where it feels like his exaggerated emphasis has carried over, like the noisier drums and guitars on the title track, or how clunky the banjo and blast a harmonica feel on VW Van, especially when they feel louder than the guitars. But on the flip side, you also have songs like After Midnight, where the vocal hook almost seems submerged in a cloud of synth that might carry melody against that nervy bass line, but doesn't really let Jake Owen's vocals or the acoustic tones come through all that well. And when you factor in the horns that come through on the title track or Good Company, all the more evidence of the Muscle Shoals sound continuing out through Nashville, or some of Jake Owen's love of Sturgill Simpson, and that sound that sounded a little bit underweight on the former song on the title track, or the sharper grooves in If He Ain't Gonna Love You with the minor chord progressions, or the very Dierks Bentley-esque atmospherics of Where I Am. I'm left feeling that Jake Owen is chasing so many different sounds instead of doubling down on what could be his own. And what's exasperating is that he's got a formula that works. Acoustic grooves, big hooks anchored in the electric guitar, real drums, most of which he has on this album to give him credit, sturdy bass lines, and pedal steel to accentuate the melody. The other pieces, more often than not, they just feel tacked on, not allowed to blend in with the mix, or given so much texture and squonking presence that they overload the grooves here. And look, I know I'm being pretty hard on this album, but that's because I am convinced that Jake Owen has it in him to make a genuine classic in modern country. He knows how to pick good, well-written songs, and he's got the creativity to push his sound while still relying on a foundation that rarely feels too synthetic or too pop. For me right now, it's a very strong 6 out of 10 and a recommendation, but you know what? With a little bit more narrative ambition and consistent production, I'm convinced that Jake Owen can bring his huge charisma and his strong hooks to make a great country album. As it is, this really should be better, but I think that Jake Owen's got it in him to pull off that next big step, so keep it up. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Got the poll up here, so if you guys loved it more than I do, there's your chance to tell me. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming up that you want me to take a look at, I will try to give them a listen. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I will see you next time. Butterflies and Bud Lights under the stars and on the stripes of a